Something else I've never understood since every single time I've gotten on the internet is people who genuinely take pleasure, especially in debating communities per se. People who genuinely take pleasure in actually watching two grown men or two men on the internet yell at each other, hurl insults at each other, especially whenever it comes to the debate community. It's very odd specifically that two people, especially on Discord, where people are supposed to actually be exchanging ideas, maybe in some trivial, non-meaningful sense, in the sense that people's opinion won't actually be changed, right? But maybe you're exchanging ideas insofar as you're trying to improve the sort of arguments that you use and the sort of reasoning which counts in favor of whatever view you're choosing to defend, right? And whenever people get on Discord, rather than doing that, instead their mind turns off, and the sort of focus they have now is yelling at the other person who's across the screen from them, yelling at the top of their lungs, and trying your hardest to pick at their social life in order to give yourself some form of masculinity points. You can look at people like Dead Boy. You can look at people like, I don't know. I'm never gonna lie. Like, I have no clue. Literally, aside from Dead Boy, like, I didn't even think of anyone else. But let's just use Dead Boy, right? Everyone knows Dead Boy, who Dead Boy is. Everyone loves Dead Boy. No, nobody really loves Dead Boy, but everyone knows who Dead Boy is. He owns guns. He makes a fair bit of money through the hood, bro, through the north, right? He makes a fair bit of money, right? And obviously, that you can say Dead Boy is better off compared to the average Discordian. So usually, whenever you see people who actually engage in terms of arguments with the guy, right, especially if it's arguments which aren't related to debating specifically, imagine they get into an argument, somebody calls Dead Boy ass, right, and the first thing people do, and this is not just Dead Boy, but this is also true for like most people, especially, what people do is, instead of doing that, right, they'll actually just immediately engage and start yelling at you, trying to pick at their social life. And it's like, hold on, Dead Boy life on Discord, I'm not sure I came on this app, right? Because obviously people come on the app to do a variety of things, right? And people talk to other people to do a variety of things too. Like, if I wanted to talk to you about my social life, right, I'm sure I talk to my friends on here. I'm sure I talk to people I know in real life. Like, I'm sure they've done that. I'm not sure I would go out and tell Dead Boy Life on Discord, like, how much money I make in a year. I'm not sure I tell Dead Boy Life on Discord how many women I speak to. I'm not sure I tell Dead Boy Life on Discord, right, what's it called, to post my face. It's like, all of those sorts of things are really, really trivial, and it actually makes people appear more like chest beaters, in the sense that these people are all unintelligent, they're loud, right? Oh yeah, give me a second. They're unintelligent, they're loud, they don't really have much to offer in terms of actually engaging with people, right? Aside from just, okay, maybe, and this is like the truth, so maybe, okay, it is funny for a bit, right? Haha, and then people make polls, and then you win for a bit, right? But then, like, it all settles down, and then you realize that, okay, well, in the meantime, where I've like yelled at this guy, in reality, I've not really accomplished anything, right? Because at least in debating, you can say, okay, maybe I've tested what's it called, or maybe I've tested the sort of ideas that I have, right? Tested the sort of arguments which I've created, or the arguments which I borrowed off of somebody else. I've tested them, and I've actually been able to win and come out on top. I've tested my own reasoning skills, at least in some sense. But what exactly do you gain from sitting on this? Especially not just the people yelling, but also at least the people in the crowd. They gain the opportunity of how there's some like some form of entertainment in watching. But the people who are actually yelling, like, aside from being like, it's like fighting in school, right? Like, at a certain age, it just becomes weird, right? Like, imagine a grown man going out and start fighting another man, right? Because fighting another man because that other man, like, the other man said something you don't like, said something that hurt your feelings. Like, obviously, is always to a certain extent, but imagine fighting somebody over that. Like, you notice that's like really weird. Like, that's really odd. You expect people at a certain age to, no longer fight people over every single word that somebody says to them on Discord. No longer like, I expect, even in real life, or no longer yell at people, raise your voice like an ignorant dog black, right? Like, what's it called? Whenever somebody raises their voice at them, or whenever somebody says something they don't like, right? And it's always very odd, because you notice that this person will sit there over the app, right, and they'll insult your father. They'll say, oh my god, I make more than your father, oh my god, you're poor, this, that, and the third, you're a loser, you're a bum. But then when you bring up the fact that your mom died this year, then it's like, no, bro, you're a weirdo. No, don't bring up my mom. No, you can't do that. No, that's too far. It's like, hold on, right? If we're both going to like act immature, if we're both going to like say stuff for no reason and both be like, because literally it's just loser behavior. Because at least whenever you debate, right, you can at least say that maybe I'm like improving like my reasoning skills, I'm improving my cadence, I'm improving my capability to speak, like, and this goes for anybody like who chooses to debate, right? They can do anything that they want, right? Or like, at least in debating wise, you're actually testing your sort of mental intellect, right? But no, whenever it's just you yelling at somebody else over Discord, you don't really think about it. Like, there's nothing else you achieve aside from having a sore throat, right? Because imagine, because this has happened to me too. Like, okay, well, I sit on the internet for like a good 20 minutes and I just yell at this dude, right? Like, this happened whenever I was debating Jar. This happened, I'm pretty sure, like last year, whenever Kyogre tried to define irony, then couldn't define irony. I spent like a good hour making fun of him in VC for it. But like, then you really deep it, like once you leave the VC, right, you really deep it, like, okay, well, I've not really accomplished anything, right? Like, okay, sure, I've made him look stupid, right? But that's like all. That's all. Like, there's nothing of interest. It's not as if like, okay, maybe if you were making a little bit of money out of it, then maybe, right? But it's not like you made any money out of it, right? It's not as if like any of the sort of positive virtues or any of the sort of virtues that you get from debating in the slightest, right? It's not as if what's it called? it's not as if like it's not as if you gained anything of meaning. So it's quite odd. Like, okay, like, what have you actually gained? Because this has happened like a lot. I've seen, in fact, this is D1 gained a reputation of this, like yelling at people over Discord. This is why he also used to call himself the Spur King. But then you'll notice that like at the end of him yelling at somebody, you can hear him out of breath. Like, it's not like an issue of, okay, well, maybe this guy's fat, haha, you're out of shape. It's like, no, right? No real individual, no like regular human being can sit there and consistently yell at somebody else without losing their voice. It just can't happen, right? So you sit down, you listen to this guy, right? You can listen to him slowly subsiding, like, oh my god, this sort of anger, the energy, the activation that he had in his body is slowly subsiding. It's slowly getting lesser and lesser, right? And now the only thing you're left with is, okay, well, I won polls in chat, right? And then if anybody were to ask me, okay, well, what are these polls for? It's like, oh my god, well, he was bitching him in VC. And it's like, okay, well, did they debate? No. Well, okay, if they did debate, was it like a serious, proper, like properly managed, properly moderated debate? Or like, was one party trolling to get the other one angry? And I was like, okay, well, it's the former. And then you just sit there in like a little bit of awkward silence, and then you realize that, okay, both you who's been watching, right, because the person who's watching has not really gained anything, right, aside from a little bit of entertainment, because I can guarantee most people who actually listen to two people on the app yell at each other, they don't laugh. Like, they don't laugh, right? Like, maybe they'll you spam Lamau in chat, and most of the time the jokes in the chat that people are making about them yelling will be more like funny than the people actually yelling themselves. So you aren't really gaining any entertainment directly. Maybe you're gaining entertainment in the indirect sense, but you aren't gaining any entertainment directly. So you've just been sitting there on your phone or laptop spamming Lamau, and I'm pretty sure this is also half of the reason why, say, for example, I don't know, that geek, fraud, fat, ugly, skinny bastard called Mason, not is Mason, right? Brain Mason, or whatever his name is, right? Like, you can also call it, you actually notice that that's also part of the reason why specifically like these sorts of people are like people who debate or anime, right, have a similar sort of reputation, because at least whenever they're talking about philosophy and people start like yelling at each other, right? People start like yelling at each other, right? And you'll notice that these guys, like, they aren't actually you didn't actually gain anything, and the only thing you're gaining is that from the outside perspective, say somebody who doesn't share your humor, right, the only thing you've done, right, from their perspective is actually just make yourself look a little bit foolish, right? So it's not as if you gain anything reputation wise, right? Because reputation wise, if you leave, say, the sort of bubble that you have, right, and you actually go into different circles and they already know who you are beforehand, right, reputation wise, you basically just like, you've done nothing for yourself aside from aside from basically just like make yourself look like somebody who can't hold a cordial conversation, who can't actually engage without exchanging swear words like every other second, which is also really odd to me, right? It's very odd, because how can you sit there and speak to somebody and not be able to say say anything to them aside, like, without swearing at least once. So what's it called? Imagine I'm debating. No. In fact, sorry. The perfect person to illustrate this is Careless, right? You notice, haha, yeah. So this bitch here, right? Yeah. So this nigga over here, and then yeah, this nigga he actually has this outerversal feat. You know, guys, he's outerversal. You know, he transcends every possible nomological, ontological dimension, and yeah, I don't know what any of these words mean, but you know, I learned them from Infinity, and since I learned them from Infinity, you all have to believe me. I'm really good. Dragons exist. And I will debate you on whether or not dragons exist because I'm very high tier, right? But you notice that usually people are just unable to actually exchange more than 3 sentences without just saying at least one swear word. And it's really odd because one, it shows a very, very limited vocabulary where you aren't actually able to exchange any sort of ideas. You aren't actually able to, you know, offer any sort of intellectual capital within the marketplace of ideas without also poisoning the well with vile, vicious, swearing language. And it's not like I'm shaming anybody for like swearing whenever they debate, right? Like, it's not as if like it's a bad thing. Like, maybe sure, like on some occasions, like if somebody is just like annoys you, like obviously you want to like swear at them sometimes, right? But it's very odd when it becomes a habit, because when it becomes a habit, it makes you like basically fit almost every single negative stereotype that exists, right? Relating to like black people, right? Like it just makes you fit every single like negative stereotype, right? Because like think about it. Okay, you're loud, you're annoying, you swear a lot, you own guns. Like, cause think about it, the first thing that people want to do whenever they get on Discord and they're actually in an altercation with somebody else, it's, oh, how much money do you make? Why does somebody on Discord want to know what somebody else on Discord makes per year? Like, what do you gain, right? Aside from, like, is it basically not just like literally, it's not basically just like a dick measuring contest, right? Where they just like sit there and like, oh my god, I make more money than you. It's like, cool, bro. Like, cool. Like, aside from that, like, what else? Like, it's not like I lose anything. Like, okay, sure, I'd lose a band for band to Elon Musk, but it's not like anybody really loses anything. So, yeah, like, you fit every single negative stereotype, and it's just really weird, right? So, in fact, I think a lot of people would benefit more from just being banned from swearing, right? Being banned from, like, because realistically, most people come on the app to debate, right? And it says most people come on the app to debate. Why would I ever be concerned about talking to you about anything that's not related to debating, right? Because it's mostly for friends. We're not close, right? I have really nothing to prove to, like, Dead Boy Life on Discord. I have nothing to prove to Careless, who is short, has big lips, looks like a troglodyte on Discord, right? I have nothing really to prove to these people, right? And in fact, the average person on Discord should have nothing really to prove to somebody else, which is why it's very odd whenever people feel sort of obligated, right, to say somebody posts their face, right, and it's like, haha, I look better than you. One, isn't that a little bit strange, like comparing your looks with like another man on the app? Like, what exactly do you want to gain? Like, you want to gain other men sitting in the chat and then giving you their approval on how physically attractive you are, right? And then saying that, oh my god, you're far more attractive than him. If I had to actually turn homosexual, you'd be the one I turned homosexual for. It's like, okay, aside from that, you don't really gain anything, right? Because why would I like let loose my own personal information from the internet? Like, this is also something that happened to my good friend, my good best buddy Yanni, where for some odd stupid reason he decided to send his face to the absolute moron, idiot, low tier, dumb idiot boy, right? Rewind. And why did he do that? Don't know. In fact, we can quote Yanni's exact words, and and these are the funniest words because they actually foreshadow what's going to happen to Yanni later on. These are his exact words, and I quote very, very explicitly, I have learned not to trust Rewind. Next year, he posts his face and the first person he sends it to is Rewind. Make it make sense. And it's not like there's anything bad, right? Obviously, there'll be a degree of trust, right? what's it called, there'll be a degree of trust. Obviously, like if it's somebody on Discord, right, maybe you've like been friends with one another for like say a very long time, and there'll be a great degree of trust between both of you. And because there's a degree of trust between both of you, then you feel fine like sharing some of your own personal information. But like obviously it comes with its own risks, like, and these sorts of risks, it seems very odd for people to entertain them, which is why it's like, why would I ever put, or anybody specifically post their own face for other people to see? It's very odd. But aside from that, Rano is a low tier, and I mean it when I say it. Rano is absolutely horrible dog at debating. He's horrible. Like, he's actually so bad it's horrifying, right? And with that being said, if you like the video, like or subscribe, and that's it, bro. In a bit. Wait, hold on. Can I extend this video to 15 minutes? No, it's already at 15 minutes.